Hey yo, what's up guys? Snoo here, welcome back to another video, this time about Path of Exile 1. I'm going to share with you my plans for 3.26, The Secrets of the Atlas, new expansion coming out here next week. So I'm coming out with this video pretty early, kind of in advance of even the official patch notes. We've already got word of what's coming down the pipe, and it seems there's really no major changes to bows. I can't believe that the build I ran last time somehow escaped all the nerfs. And I told myself a little while back that if I were to play 3.26, which I'm going to, that I might just recycle the same league star I did last time, because it's been a while since I played bows, even though this was technically last league. I think you guys know what I mean when I say that. And it was so unbelievably strong, and this freezing elemental hit of the Spectrum Warden just completely made a mockery of the content. As you can see, this is a day one experience in the background. I'm actually showing you authentic footage of my day one experience trying to get into high tier red maps on a Quill Rain. Yes, a Quill Rain with attack based elemental build. And as you can see, I'm not in any danger whatsoever. Whereas a Deadeye, or pretty much any other bow build at this point in their progression, would be in a sort of kill or be killed scenario. Maybe resistances aren't even capped. Very dangerous point in progression. Not so with the Warden. And it so happens that 99% plus monsters in this game can be hard frozen to the point where they're no threat at all. Just look what I'm doing right here to the Soul Eater Rare. That would be a very dangerous monster under normal circumstances. And so the ultimate defensive layer of freeze is very real with this build. And for anyone who hasn't personally had the experience and luxury of playing this ascendancy in the end game, well, you're missing out. And maybe by the end of this video, you'll think about trying this build. But either way, I'm going to share with you some of the new things, updated stuff, because now I have a great deal of insight. I've, of course, updated the build as time went on through the league start process. I've now revisited it again with the hindsight of playing at a multi-mirror tier level, reverse engineering how all that went. And, I'm going to give you an extraordinarily comprehensive league start POB. And then I'm just going to simply link the old build guide video in the description of this video, and then kind of talk about some of the changes and differences that are here. But the path of building linked in that video, as well as this one, will be totally up to date. So let's get started. I'm going to save some few extra words for the end about the, shall we say, community perception of bows, the state of bows in general. And we'll conclude the video there. Okay, I think I'm going to use Path of Building as the sort of means to go through some of the differences, some of the major changes that have taken place over time as I've gained more insight and refined the build. This Path of Building is absurdly compact, airtight, with, configurations, calculations, all out the wazoo, so many different setups, 4 separate endgame variants we'll look at in a minute. But first, let's talk about the Warden versus the Deadeye. This conversation always comes up. I mean, it came up at the beginning of the league last time, okay? So I know many of you think that, especially elemental bows and Deadeye, are synonymous with one another. I mentioned in the video, in the intro of this video, that I have now completely rethought or reoriented my brain about the value that Deadeye brings to this build versus Warden. Having had the true experience of playing Deadeye elemental bows many times over, including elemental hit of the Spectrum, and now having had the full-blown experience playing Warden, I can confidently say the Warden blows the Deadeye out of the water. Not necessarily at the very beginning, when Gathering Winds, Tailwind is obviously very good for speed, but the second your damage matters, the second your defense matters, the Warden comes out on top. The Warden absolutely takes the cake on damage, and Oath of Winter is not just some throwaway pseudo-defensive layer. This is the strong, I believe, is somebody who loves this archetype, somebody who's very comfortable playing bows, as somebody who is quite adept at manually evading and dodging stuff. This is the strongest defensive layer that I've ever experienced on a bow character. And I've played champion bows, by the way. The problems with the Deadeye for Elemental Hit of the Spectrum is that it's not bad, it's just not as good, not as strong. It's just the Warden is that good. Tailwind is really good. Actually, I prefer the Deadeye for leveling. In fact, it's suggested in this guide that you level the first 2 or maybe 3 ascendancies as Deadeye, because Gathering Winds and that speed is all you need in the campaign and maybe for the first few maps. Farshot got nerfed pretty hard in terms of its true original design. It's still a good ascendancy point, but it did get nerfed. Ricochet is not particularly useful for this build, generally, as returning projectiles is thought of to be a little bit superior, although you can go chain variant. And then endless munitions is typically the other fourth ascendancy chosen. And while it's obviously decent, it is, I believe, very much overrated for skills like LA and elemental hit of the spectrum especially. LA less so. It's terrific for tornado shot, don't get me wrong. But for elemental hit of the spectrum, it's not that useful. We get AoE components off of this. You're not chaining, just going through enemies. It's decent for clear. It has really no impact on single target. But to be honest, the clear is already pretty solid with elemental hit of the spectrum. So outside of a few niche situations, endless munitions is not giving you a whole lot of extra power. It is decent, obviously. But the Warden is just absurdly, stupid strong. Up to 60% increased damage taken from monsters through Oath of Summer, through Double Scorch. Around 50% practical uptime on Avatar of the Wilds is wildly strong. Oath of Spring is actually really easy to keep up and get locked into 100 or 50 stacks of 2% shock effect very quickly, because it works a lot better than I expected it to originally. Even things like Ballista Totem, Focus Ballista Totem, and Mana-Forged Links, Mana-Forged Storm Rain, for example, will load up every enemy with max stack shocks immediately right off the bat. And then Oath of Winter is the superhero of ascendancy points, easily the most valuable ascendancy point I've ever seen in the game for any build ever that I've played. If I go back and somebody asks me, Stu, what is the most powerful ascendancy notable in the entire game? And that was the question, I would say Oath of Winter. Hands down. So that kind of hopefully helps you understand a little bit about Warden versus Deadeye. Now, a lot of people are emphasizing tinctures. Of course, they're pretty solid too, but I think there's just so much, I mean, it's just so obvious, the synergies between elemental hit of the spectrum and this build. It already gets the Trinity going on. It doesn't matter how well rolled your bow is. You can even run Quill Rain for the most absurdly overpowered experience. You get nearly 50% chance to freeze, shock, and ignite automatically, paired with these gloves, which does absolutely ridiculous things for your chill, scorch, and freeze duration and effects, so to speak. A lot of really awesome niche synergies going on with this build, with uniques that are very easy to access. And yeah, also not to mention that one of the major kickers here is Elemental Hit of the Spectrum does 15% more damage for each type of elemental ailment on the enemy. Warden gets one additional ailment. They get Scorch on top of Ignite. You get Ignite through Mirror Arrow, Bombarding Clones, plus Combustion. It's actually quite reliable there. And you also get another crazy benefit from these boots here that we're using, Lionized Paws, another crazy awesome tech. I may make a separate video on this because it honestly deserves it. Squeezing Bone Chill into this when we have max chill effect always. Call Elemental Weakness with Hex Touch. It's crazy strong. In fact, with this variant and this build, Elemental Weakness is better than Sniper's Mark, which should speak volumes to how crazy strong the Ascendancy is. In order for Elemental Weakness to actually beat Sniper's Mark in terms of power is pretty nutty. Not just beat, but like a 31% reduced effect of elemental weakness beats Sniper's Mark. Well, I guess it would be kind of similar with Mark on hit support, right? So that's kind of some of the key special things about the Warden, some of the really awesome synergies in play. And what really brings it online is a powerhouse ascendancy and skill combo with Elemental Hit of the Spectrum. Let's take a quick note at returning projectiles. 61% less damage with hits and ailments while returning. This is the only known nerf that's coming down the pipe for this build, as far as I'm aware. It is being nerfed to 66% less damage with hits and ailments while returning. It's just to make me even happier when I get the Nimbus Ring for the automatic returning projectiles with no penalty. And yeah, in the meantime, it's not that effective. There is actually a much bigger nerf taking place to bows in general, and that is hits have a chance, 25% chance to treat monster elemental resistance values as inverted. This is a mainstay, an automatic mastery point that you would take with any elemental bow build, except you don't do it with this one, because I'm already reducing elemental resistance of monsters crazy with double Oath of Summer and Scorch, double Scorch, and elemental weakness. And then there are all kinds of additional ways we're reducing elemental damage taken from monsters, including things like Bone Chill, cold mastery, and that's not even the full list. I mean, it's something like 250% increased damage taken at the end. It would bring a teary-eyed to any omniscience build how much increased damage these monsters are taking. Let me quickly bring up some of the differences, key differences between the gearing setup for this new version of 3.26 versus 3.25. So I wasn't 100% sure the accessibility of some of the uniques for this build at the time, but now I can feel a lot more confident slamming a bunch of uniques in here, as I know about how common they are. Unless, of course, GGG pulls a fast one, pulls the rug out from under us and makes some common uniques more rare again. I don't think they would normally do that if they're not actually buffing them. First one is Kintsugi out for Dariso's Defiance. These two armors were kind of on par with each other overall. Dariso's Defiance a little bit better for mapping. Kintsugi's obviously better for bossing. But they're so similar in terms of power that I think it's not that big of a deal. Apparently, Dariso's Defiance was way cheaper than Kintsugi and way more accessible, so that's why that's in there. Here's a big one. The Halcyon ended up being a lot harder to get than I expected. It is a breach bossing specific unique. I thought people would be accessing and doing breach bosses pretty quickly, but apparently that wasn't the case, so we're going to drop that out for a crew reward. Another case of just the absurdly overpowered nature of Oath of Winter. This is completely unnecessary. I thought I would need to help that ascendancy point bring it online with a whole bunch of extra freeze duration on enemies. Totally not the case. This is, I'm telling you, this ascendancy needs no help whatsoever. You could probably be doing like 5 cold damage. It would still, if you're attacking fast enough, it would still be insanely powerful. Well, at any rate, we're going to be putting crew reward back in because it's obviously a lot easier to get. And then the anointment is, let's see, what was it again? It was Fury Bolts. Now, Fury Bolts is a really, really smart, super early game anoint. Probably the single best one in terms of, you know, cost efficiency to get. I mean, we're talking like get this the second you finish the campaign, if possible. Just go out and buy these cheap oils and put it on that amulet because that's going to hold you over until tier 16 maps for sure. I did have Defiled Forces anointed. Yet again, totally unnecessary. I thought I would need to help Oath of Spring with shock effect and recycling shocks. Not necessary. Not when you have Focus Ballista support. Not when you have Mana Forge Arrows Storm Rain, if you want. Those two things by themselves, individually, will bring up the shock counter to cap within like 1 second flat or something. So, just completely unnecessary. Oath of Spring actually doesn't really need any help. Static Blows is a nice secondary choice on the Anoint if you do want to help it a little bit. But I don't even think that's going to necessarily be mandatory. The only other major changes is Heat Shiver. Now, Heat Shiver, I actually started with Heat Shiver in the original guide and then swapped it out to the Fledgling, but then later realized that the Fledgling had a lot of staying power in terms of its pricing on the economy. It remained to be a little bit too expensive for too long. It's a heist-specific drop. Again, I thought it would be accessible pretty early, not necessarily day one, but it ended up being a few divines for a while. While Heat Shiver dropped in the market pretty hard and is, you know, extremely good for any sort of pure cold-based build, but also very, very, very good for a high freeze capacity build, one that also benefits off of Scorch effect. So really good synergies at play here. Even though we're not a pure cold build, we still get a lot of value, a lot of extra damage from that, you know, as you can see what happens to the numbers when I simply swap that out. So those are the major sort of changes based on the build guide video that I'm linking for you in the description of this one. And, you know, if there's any sort of discrepancy on that, just follow what I'm saying here. Follow the actual POB that will be updated on every end. There are, of course, a few other minor adjustments to the passive tree. I'm not going to get into detail about them because there are way too many to count. But just follow what you see here. This POB has four separate endgame variants, all the way up to a Tailwind boot crafted Headhunter version with cluster jewels in play. And so this might be the most comprehensive League Start build guide path of building that you've ever seen from any content creator for any build ever. It certainly is the case for me, and the amount of sheer effort and work that's gone into this is truly mind-bending. I honestly have no idea how much time I put into this, so I hope you guys get a lot out of this. I got some help from from one of the viewers in the past who set this the notes up. They're really good, and you can see we got the links, we got all the different campaign start, early leveling, late leveling setups. The loadouts are set up here for the endgame variants. The official endgame variant is the early endgames. Let's talk about what makes this one particularly good. You'll notice first off, 5 links, no 6 links. So a lot of build guides will feature 6 links. This is still on the phase of 5 links. It is level 94, but I just kind of show that because you wouldn't want to go any further than this before swapping to crit. There are no unique or enchanted flasks to speak of. These are all very cheap flasks. Actually, flasks in general are a lot more expensive than people give them credit for. It's one of the very first great profit crafts to do in a league in the first day or two. And that said, with the mix and match options here, this is not going to be terribly difficult to get your hand on flasks that are about this good. 0 cluster jewels in play. In fact, the only jewel that I have here is a Searching Isle jewel just for blind, which could be a tattoo, but also secondarily 0 tattoos in play. Again, we're talking about something that's very replicable here. Cheap enchants on the bow. This is, I think, mid-tier cold, flat cold enchant. There might be different enchants better. There might be something you can do that's better than this, but also should mention that there have been some changes that have taken place to elemental bows in terms of how they craft. No more resistance modifiers. Some of the suffix, prefix change. They're going to be a hell of a lot easier to craft now. For example, fracture cold, get metallic, scorched fossil. That's going to come out really good. Quite often, maybe deft fossil in there, I think it is, whatever the crit fossil is, would also be good to remove the attributes. The Recombinator is back with the finished King's March, so I mean that's going to be easy to do. A lot of you are aware of this already. The new Recombinate method. It's going to be easier than it's ever been to get a triple high tier flat lightning with at least attack speed and/or crit and/or additional arrow. You can see this bow will not be hard to make early on, even the first day or two. And perhaps the most noteworthy thing of all, still using precise technique. It gives me great pride to not have to subject people who might be trying to follow a build into a league starter that involves a crit swap. That is always the most challenging thing about one of these builds, is how do you do the crit swap? How do you not mess it up? I can't tell you how many times I've seen scuffed POBs of people who are like midway through a crit swap and their build is way worse than it would be if they simply clicked precise technique on, or just removed a few other points and put them in a few other places. It's not easy for people who don't know about builds, especially transitioning out. Precise technique, no crit, is so much simpler and easier to understand. All you have to do is make sure that your accuracy is higher than your life. I don't have any accuracy rolls on gear, so it's obviously cutting close here, but there's other options like these points here that would boost it up pretty high. So yeah, let that be a word to the wise. It's so much easier when you don't have to factor in the crit swap. And so for this damage modifier to be that high, and then obviously the second you go into crit with any gear decent whatsoever, I mean, this is double inspired learning. An unnatural instinct might be a little expensive. Thread of Hope is not that bad this time around. These numbers just start to go wild here in the end. And these are true DPS numbers relative to the power that would be represented in actual gameplay, practical gameplay. Take it from me as somebody who knows, who actually played this build. In the end, when I was at this stage, I was crushing 1,000+ pilfer boss counts like it was nothing. The boss doesn't even move, doesn't do anything. This is not the same for tier 17 bosses, maybe not for tier 16.5 bosses. We'll see, but there's obviously a lot of content that this build just completely manhandles, so take that for what it is. All right, so that is basically all I want to share with the current state of the Warden. Freezing elemental hit of the Spectrum. It's going to be an absolute wonderful blast. Just so much fun. And my goal is that you guys, if you're interested in this build, please watch the official build guide. A lot of work went into that. It's perfectly valid for what we're looking at. I named you some of the differences in this video, so you can refer to this as some of the fundamental changes to some of the gear. But I mean, it's basically the same. It's like 99% the same build. And you can always refer to the path of building, which is going to be kept up to date moving on. And if there's any sort of major changes in the patch notes, I'll address that in real time as we get towards the launch. Now, for the rest of this video, I'm going to address the elephant in the room. A very big elephant in a very small room. And that is, Fubgun thinks bows are trash. So he has said repeatedly on his streams recently. I've seen a bit of footage on this. And I'm actually going to play just real quick, tiny little snippet, so you don't think I'm talking smoke here. This is a real thing. So here you go.
Melee or bows? I mean, I enjoy bows, but bows are like so XTD right now. And they got nerfs in the patch. Yeah, bows stuck on bosses, which is a pain because presumably the new pinnacles, you want like good boss damage. Bows for a bag? No. I'm just finishing this pop. Bows are not back. Dude, bows are dog shit right now. What do you mean? Guys, I want to play bows. But then like you're gonna like log in, it's gonna be day 2, and you have to fight the pinnacle bosses, you're gonna be sad. Like fuck, why'd I choose bows? That's gonna happen. Slam Zerker, you get number 1. Okay, I don't agree with this, dude. But dude, I'm gonna yell at Tai. Last week we already agreed that Ellie Hit was even like the top 5 starter, and now you put it in top 3 again. Did Tai forget? I'm gonna yell at Tai. This is bait.
Yeah, so that's just a small sample size of some of the clips out there. Believe me, there's much worse than that. Those are the tame ones I was able to get in the last couple days. And out of respect for Fubgun as a content creator, I've refrained from, name-checking him in a video like this, as it doesn't give me any pleasure to do so, but I feel like my hand has been forced. Okay? Enough is enough. I've seen him trashing the bow archetype. I've seen him trashing other content creators and their builds being not good enough or, trash or whatever have you. And it's not good for the community, especially right now. This is a very special time, guys. We have a crossover between the PoE1 and PoE2 community. We got brand new players who are finding content creators and, building trust and respect for them. And, they go into that particular community, whether they're from my community, new community, his community. Whenever they approach the content creator with questions, eager to play an archetype they love, and they get shut down like that, like he's been doing repeatedly over and over and over, that doesn't look good on the community as a whole. It looks toxic, is what. And I would prefer this community do better than that. And so, obviously, I disagree with him as well, putting that to the side. Clearly, I wouldn't be coming out with this build video if I didn't. Clearly, I wouldn't have enjoyed bows as much as I did in 3.25 if I didn't disagree, and had as much success as I had if I didn't disagree. The funny thing is, his argument basically just hinges on 2 things. Bows aren't good for pinnacle content early on, day 2 especially, as well as he made other comments in other clips I didn't post about tier 17, bosses especially. Well, I don't know what the big deal is about pinnacle content, because that's been a known quantity for ages, since before I even started playing the game. Nobody who knows a thing or two about bows makes a bow character like this with the intention of being able to clear and or be a bosser, to clear bossing content early on. Either they buy the carries or they farm a little extra time to get a few dozen divines, farming Legion Dunes or whatever have you, and then they go do that. There's nothing new to that. And I'm pretty sure even in Siege of Atlas, when other brand new pinnacle content came out, I played a bow build then. Never bothered me. It didn't bother me then, doesn't bother me now. And I think I speak for a lot of people on that. Similar story with the tier 17s, although at least that's a little bit more sensible argument as it is newer content. But at any rate, the funny thing is, I remember the strategy he purported to talk highly of in the first week of 3.25, tier 17, was, what was it again? It was boxes, ambush boxes. How important was it to kill the boss on that strategy? Open 40 boxes, Arcanist, Diviners boxes. How much currency was the boss worth on that strat? The answer is it was trivial. And that's evidenced by the fact that many people also follow that farm who didn't kill the boss because their character was scuffed or they just wasn't good enough. They opened all the boxes and they were totally satisfied because they made a boatload of currency anyway. Similarly, there's the I-level 84 cluster farm, one of my personal favorites, and I've literally gone out of my way talking about how that particular strat is amazing, even without killing the boss. In fact, it's so good that you get those delirium rewards racked up so fast in the first quarter of the map that you might as well just skip the boss anyway, even if you can do it. So I don't know what's gotten into him. I don't know if he's forgotten how to have fun in this game, if he's been captured by the racer mentality or what. But yeah, very little creativity coming out of him and his community, and there's really no room for it. Just min-maxing. That's the only thing that matters. We're going to min-max the fun out of the game, which is pretty hilarious. The fact that it has to be me call him out of all people, because I also like to do that, but I tend to take that approach on strategies, which are much more confined to what they are, very few variables involved. To me, builds are sacred. They're there for the fun of it. Okay, you run a build in a particular archetype because you want to have fun, not because you want to be the absolute fastest or most efficient, player or whatever. There's no surprise to me why a particular player might stop having fun in this game when they take that approach all the way to its absolute max, including the build itself. So last thing I'll leave you with is the ultimate trump card that I have against his argument, and that's actions speak louder than words. He didn't play bows last league. He ain't playing bows this league, but I did, and I am. I played this build, had a tremendous amount of success. You can see all kinds of different videos going back to 3.25 about how I was doing, all the way up to Mirror Tier Tinctured Tornado Shot, and I had an absolute blast. I had so much fun that I'm doing it again. Unfortunately, I'm something of an authority on bows too, so if it makes you feel any better, I'd say bows are in a really good spot. In fact, I would even say they're in the best spot they've been since Crucible League. I have to go all the way back to Vengeance Cascade and Crucible Weapons to find a time when bows were stronger than they are now. Now, they may not be particularly well suited for very hyper niche moments and specific, content that's out there now, and maybe they're not going to be the very best at this brand new content. But you know what? It doesn't matter, because you don't have to play the game that way. As the golden rule is, not everybody plays the game the same way. So if you want to do bows, more power to you. You don't need me to tell you. You sure as hell don't need Fubgun to tell you. You can do whatever you want. Yeah, so guys, thank you for watching. Just so you know, we're going to try to keep things a little more positive here moving forward. Hopefully we can do that. And just so you know, I'll also probably come out with some tech-related stuff, exciting different new things that I've discovered last time, especially regarding the Warden. Also, I think it'd be nice if I kind of put out an inspirational video on Elementalist, Burning Arrow, Cast on Crit Technique Dead, sort of experimental build that I made a few weeks before 3.25. And while it's not something I'm going to do, not something I'm going to update particularly, I think it would be kind of cool to just throw it out there, because it's definitely an exciting ascendancy with all the new buffs that are coming to the Elementalist, and it's an ascendancy that's near and dear to my heart. But I am going to stick with Warden because I love it. So guys, let me know what you think in the comments down below. We will see y'all in the next video.